Urgent. In 1567, a massive explosion ripped through a Scottish royal bedchamber at Kirk of Field, assassinating King Henry Stuart. And hiding in the shadows of this high-profile royal hit were the enforcers of Clan Cleland. To understand Lowland Scotland during this era, you have to throw out any modern ideas of polite, civilized royalty. Think of the region as a territory carved up by ruthless, mafia-style crime syndicates. Survival under this feudal system was strictly binary. You either swore allegiance to a powerful family cartel, or you were crushed by one. The history of Clan Cleland provides a perfect blueprint for how a minor family built a terrifying political cartel, only to have their entire legacy stolen from the inside. The family began as literal muscle. Their original root name, Knetland, translates from Old German to describe knights, land servants, and soldiers. They deployed that muscle early on in the wild woodlands of Lanarkshire. Serving as the hereditary foresters for the powerful Earls of Douglas, the Clelands acted as heavy-handed enforcers, violently policing the baronial hunting grounds and timber resources. They operated out of fortified cliffside estates, utilizing natural subterranean hideouts like Wallace's Cave. This iron-gated cavern, cut directly into the rock above a rushing river, gave the family a secure sanctuary to evade rival forces and plot their next move. Providing brute force and secure safe houses was an excellent starting point. But to dominate the region, the Clelands needed to merge their bloodline with royalty. In 1275, Alexander Cleland contracted a highly strategic marriage to Margaret Wallace. She was the aunt of William Wallace, which instantly tied the Cleland bloodline to Scotland's premier rebel leader. Alexander's son, James Cleland, capitalized on this connection, becoming Wallace's most trusted companion in arms. Together, they captured pirates on the high seas and fought vicious street-to-street skirmishes in Glasgow. This detailed engraving captures the chaos of the Battle of Stirling Bridge, where the Clelands stood shoulder to shoulder with Wallace, hacking through English ranks. When Wallace was executed, the Clelands didn't hesitate. They quickly transferred their loyalty and their swords directly to King Robert the Bruce. They proved their worth by bleeding for the king at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314. In return, the king rewarded them heavily. Look at this map. Massive land grants in West Calder poured into the clan's control. From there, connection lines radiate out, representing strategic marriages into the heavy-hitting houses of Somerville, Bothwell, and Hamilton. These corporate-style alliances brought in massive dowries and deep political influence. But accumulating that much power painted a massive target on the Clelands' backs. The pushback was violent. A bitter local turf war erupted against their neighbors, the Muirheads, turning Lanarkshire into an active war zone for decades. Their ambitions also dragged them into the highest echelons of royal conspiracy. Through their marital ties to the House of Bothwell, the Clelands found themselves entangled with Mary, Queen of Scots. 2 Cleland brothers were formally indicted for their role in the Kirk of Field explosion that assassinated Lord Darnley. The local forest enforcers had officially graduated to regicides. Surviving decades of violent turf wars and royal assassination plots proved the family possessed immense strength. Yet their ultimate vulnerability was hiding completely undetected within their own bloodline. In 1634, the clan suffered an internal crisis. The heir apparent, Alexander Cleland, died prematurely, leaving behind a young orphaned son as the sole inheritor of the empire. This tragedy caught the attention of the boy's uncle, James Cleland, a greedy underboss who saw a sudden opportunity to seize the succession line for himself. Uncle James executed a ruthless hostile takeover, using extortion and piles of gold. Through severe legal coercion, he forced his young nephew into pressing his seal onto a contract, signing over the ancestral estates entirely. By forcing the young heir to sell his birthright, James permanently severed the chiefship from the direct bloodline, fracturing the clan's leadership for centuries to come. The wealth James seized quickly evaporated. Maintaining sprawling fortified estates, combined with the legal burdens of a contested legacy, drained the family coffers. By 1702, the Clelands were forced to sell their ancestral seat to settle debts, and their ancient stone towers were eventually abandoned to ruin. With the physical land gone, the only asset the syndicate had left was its brand identity. their authorized heraldry, and the exclusive right to display 2 greyhounds on their coat of arms. The usurping Cleland chief became increasingly paranoid about his stolen status. Right here on Princess Street in Edinburgh, he personally painted over his cousin's carriage, punishing him for unauthorized use of the clan's heraldry. The usurper's line had traded a real, physical empire for a hollow title, aggressively guarding a legacy they hadn't rightfully earned. While Uncle James successfully stole the title, the orphaned boy, the true heir, survived. His direct descendants were quietly scattered to the winds over the centuries. This fractured family tree means the rightful chiefs of this ancient cartel are likely alive today, completely unaware of their stolen birthright. Check your own family records. You might uncover hidden stolen legacies, lost titles, or dark secrets buried in the past. Let me know what you find down in the comments.